did an undergrad in computer science, which is quite usual, but then I took 4 years off to teach English in Japan, which I enjoyed thoroughly. But then after that, I always wanted to pursue an advanced degree in computer science and AI. So I came back here, did a master's in artificial intelligence at York University. Then I got an email advertising the CDE and the NGD program. I thought, that sounds great, that's exactly what I want to do.
So in terms of when I started the NGD, I was in one of the first intakes. My research project focused on engagement, so I was looking at audience engagement around creative content. So specifically, the company that I worked for, who I was embedded with for the duration, was a small animation company based in Bristol.
During my NGD with the University of Bath and CDE, I was doing artificial intelligence-based research, and we were applying that to interactive stories. So you wanted to be able to generate stories where the characters react to what you're doing, so the story is different every time you experience it. And I developed some prototypes, such as computer games, to do that. And so one example is we were working with the Bishop's Palace in Wells to create a prototype experience where people would walk into the exhibit and they'd have an iPad which could tell where you were in the room, and we'd have like bishops kind of talking to the people, and these intelligent bishops adapting to what you're doing and what you're looking at within the exhibit.
Everything you're doing applies to what the company is doing in the real world. They're not kind of fake projects. So everything that you build goes out and is seen by a real audience. So I made quite a few games and apps, so just seeing people play with that work is just a great feeling.
So the company I was embedded in was a small company called Sysemia in Bristol. Their background was in, for example, information management for large companies like Rolls-Royce, or designing jet engines. They were pursuing a different route, so they wanted to get into digital heritage. So they're happy to take me on as an NGD to pursue that research and to develop new technologies as well, which they could then apply elsewhere in the company.
Definitely the CDE certainly focuses on ensuring that you are a community of fellow students, even across the two universities. So even though they have got people based at Bournemouth and based at Bath, they do make an effort in order to ensure that everyone knows each other from those two universities, with different events throughout the year.
You have quite an adequate budget for travelling to conferences, so I went to pretty much every conference that was related to my field.
I went to a couple of conferences in America, and then a fair few in Europe, both presenting papers and also just attending in general.
I feel like I know a lot of the people in my field personally because I've went to these conferences and talked to them. And the CDE really encourages that, and that's really good. I mean, that's been really worthwhile.
I'm still in touch with my academic supervisor. I'm still in touch with a fair number of the students from my year group and the other year groups, including Matt here at Bath Spa, because we work in the same department.
One of the modules I teach here is called digital storytelling. We talk about different ways of telling stories in computer games, or even visually with animation. And because my research was into non-linear story, like creating stories of multiple paths through them, I can talk about that, and I can actually talk specifically about the research I was doing.
Personally, I don't like public speaking, which might seem weird for someone who's now in a job as a lecturer. But in terms of attending conferences and the presenting and networking aspects of all of that, in terms of like confidence development, it was fantastic for that as much as kind of making new contacts.
I felt like I really picked up a lot of practical skills, and that's why I applied for an NGD rather than the PhD. I think I wasn't really interested in a purely theoretical approach. The idea that you can do research, come up with an idea and then actually make it, and people get to see it and it's potentially used somewhere. That's why the NGD appealed to me.
The way you're embedded in industry, I think, was what really, really attracted me to a traditional PhD. I'm not sure if I would have got to the end of. Straight after my NGD, I continued with the company that I was with, and without the NGD, I wouldn't be in the job I'm at now. So yeah, definitely, it's incredibly valuable in terms of employability.
The nature of doing the NGD is that you're always balancing doing industrial projects versus doing the academic things like writing papers, and like walking that line between the two is often a challenge. But I think, like in retrospect, life is about overcoming challenges, and you grow as a person as a result of that. And an NGD provides you with an absolute an absolutely ideal environment to be challenged and overcome those challenges. So I think absolutely it was worthwhile.